Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well out there. Grab a snack, a drink, take a seat. Today's episode's going to be a long one, so we're going to jump right into it. This is a continuation of last episode. This is just the next part in that same box, and we're going to start with the intake manifold. Both of these pieces have a left and a right indented into them, and they're secured with EP screws. So as you can see, I had a little bit of trouble grabbing the manifolds. They were very slippery with the gloves, just the way that the shape and the contour of them was. But it wasn't too difficult to get the screws in. Again, this was just into plastic. One hint I do want to give you guys, or one bit of information, as you see the frustration kicking in, was to unscrew one side a little bit. So don't fully tighten one side, have it a little bit loose so there's a little bit of play in the piece that you can adjust and then screw the entire thing together. And now that that's done, we can just set that aside and start working on the carburetor. So again, the Camaro, if you joined us last week for the video, the Camaro that my dad and I are working on is a 1968 with a 327 small block Chevy in it. And it had a 2-barrel carburetor on it, but we decided to upgrade it with a Holley 4-barrel. And this one that we're going to be putting in this 358 Chevy engine is somewhat similar to that one. As you can see here, we're putting the accelerator pumps into the side bowls of the carburetor. And this was an interesting thing because it was kind of just a little press fit. And once you have those on and attached to the bowls, then you take the plates and you put those over top of that to keep the accelerator pumps secured in. And by doing so, you're also strengthening that part of the carburetor a little bit. And with that, we did 2 EP screws in each side, so both, I guess in this case, the left and the right side. And now that we got those complete, what we did was we picked up the flange plate that goes in the bottom of the carburetor that connects basically the main bowl section and main carburetor section to the intake manifold. And as you can see, we're taking a very close look at how we attached the bowls. It was a little interesting that we didn't attach them to the main center section of the carburetor, but rather we attached them right to the flange plate. So what we're doing here is we're lining that up, and we had 2 FP screws to put into, I guess, the forks that went around that was attached to the side of the bowls. Again, this was kind of a simple task. It was just made more difficult by the gloves that I had on. But as you can see, once we get both sides in, it looks really good. The only problem is that my above camera died for the moment, so we had to switch over to the right side camera. Which it still looks fine, but bear with me for a minute. Now we'll get into the main body part of the carburetor, and as you can see, it just press fits in between the 2 bowl sections. An interesting piece about this though is that it's tough to get it between them because they're angled in a little bit because of the way that the screws are flanged and pull the forks in, but not difficult to get it together. 1 EP screw in the bottom to finish that up, and now we have basically the carburetor done. We got to set that on top of the intake manifold. And I don't know if you noticed before, but there are 4 holes in the bottom of the flange plate to attach, and that's with 4 AP screws. Again, plastic into plastic, pretty easy. Take a close-up look at it. Beautiful little carburetor and intake manifold combination assembly here. So we'll just set that aside for the time being, and we'll move on to the air intake. And as we're getting into this, if you guys are new here and you like what you're seeing and want to help support the channel, just give it a thumbs up, maybe subscribe, or leave a comment if you want. I really appreciate it. It helps get the video out to other people that might be interested in checking out this model build as well. Anyway, back to the model. I did cut out a lot of the footage here because I put this together one way and figured it out that it was wrong because all of the holes go into the pins. So it goes together one way. They're shaped a little bit differently, so it's another poke yoke thing, but air filter goes together nicely. No, nothing too difficult. Now let's add the fuel line to the carburetor. I want to say this was simple, but you had to pry the prongs of the fuel line apart a little bit to get them to press fit onto the carburetor. So you kind of have to be a little bit careful because it is a tight fit, but overall it went together pretty nice. And as you can see, I didn't really have any issues with it. I didn't cut any footage out. One thing that is funny though is I did forget, and I skipped this part, I forgot to put these plates over top of the intake manifold. And they are basically the way that we are going to connect the cylinder heads to the intake manifold and then subsequently to the carburetor. So both of these plates are side specific, so they have a left and a right indented into them, molded into them. And they also have to go vertically a specific way because they have tabs on them that you press fit into the cylinder heads. You have to get these right, otherwise it won't work, but it's a matter of screwing 4 EP screws into plastic. So if you mess it up the first time, it's really not that big of a deal. You could just flip it around and redo it. And now that that's done, we can take this assembly back to the engine assembly that we have. And honestly, I messed around with these wires again, and so I skipped all that and just brought this back together where we snapped the intake manifold and carburetor assembly onto the engine block through the cylinder heads, and then we just took the air intake, placed that down over top of the carburetor, and screwed it in with another EP screw, of course. And it looks good. We're just going to take that and set that to the side right now as we move on to part 12 of this build. And to begin this part, we're going to be assembling the alternator together. First, we'll take the housing, the back part of the housing of the alternator, and apply the bracket that will hold it to the engine mount together. Those go together with 2 AAM screws, and it can really only go on one way as the back of the alternator has to attach to the bracket. Next, we're going to take the inner part and put that together. That kind of just goes in between the two ends of the cover, gives you the guts of the alternator essentially, just from the aesthetic of the model. That goes together with 1 AP screw and only go in one way. As you can see, looks good, no issues there. And finally, this plate will go over top and hide that screw, but also give a little extra depth to that one screw hole that will attach to the engine mount. This part was a pain in the butt for me. It frustrated me. As you can see, I'm messing with the screws a lot. I had to unscrew them a ton, so I cut out a lot of that footage. Overall, it looks really good once fully applied to the engine mount. And we'll take a look at that really quick here before we move on to the last portion of the alternator. Boom, there we go. We have the sprocket. We just slide that over the end. We have 2 more pieces to put on. We have this plate, this pulley plate that goes on here, just like that, and the other pulley plate, and then we have a flanged BP screw to complete that sub-assembly. Okay, don't fall in love with it. Looks good. Let's move on. We got to get this show on the road. Okay, so we're going to move on to the crankshaft pulley. And with that, we have the vibration damper. That is assembled together with a BP screw. Again, it's flanged to hold the pieces together. And once we get those done, we can put that together. The vibration damper at the front face of the engine mount, the bottom. There's 2 AP screws that will put this piece together. As you can see, looks good right on the bottom of the engine mount. Speaking of vibrations and this particular model, system dynamics and response and mechanics of vibrations were 2 of my favorite courses in school when I was going for my degree, and it just so happens that I ended up working for an automotive company that deals with NVH, or noise, vibrations, and harshness with bushings on vehicles. So kind of a neat little tie-in. It doesn't exactly relate to the damper that we just put together, but that's a little aside. But as you guys can clearly see, we've already moved on to the next section, number 13. So this is a new part. We're working on the oil pump dry sump. And these 2 pieces, the bracket into the base, will be secured with 2 AEP screws, which will get covered up here shortly. I guess a little foreshadowing. But we're also going to have the pulley put together. It's just a press fit, nothing too spectacular. That's going to go over top of the end of the housing, and then it's all assembled with a BP screw, another flanged one to keep the whole sub-assembly together. And we're also catching up on the assembly of the oil pump shaft into the oil pump cover. There's a little key notch in it that is, again, another poke yoke that allows it to only be assembled one way. So now that we got that done, we can put that onto the engine mount. And we do that by screwing 2 AP screws into the back of the engine mount into the subassembly. And that will lead us into the power steering pump. So we're just gonna grab that really quick, and we just slide this over the central shaft of the oil pump. There's a big hole in the middle of it. And after we do that, there's a little pin that goes on the top of the power steering pump that we can attach the line to. There's a real small pin that's just plastic. You have to be careful with it, like we already discussed with the distributor cap. We wouldn't want to be breaking any more of those little plastic pins. With that, we'll just move on. I know we're getting through this model. There's a lot to build today. But anyway, we're going to move on to the steering pulley. This is just press fit together. Nothing too spectacular. Took a little bit of extra effort to get them to go together, but all that does is slide perfectly onto the oil pump shaft, and then it's held together with another flanged BP screw. And yes, it does rotate. So in theory, all of these pulleys can rotate, but they really don't. And we'll set that aside and grab the main engine assembly, because we're going to put the oil pump dry sump subassembly onto the engine using 2 cm screws. And I think going forward, I'm going to have a little bit of a different format for these videos. It seems a little rushed. It seems like we're working through a lot of things really quickly, and I don't love it. I don't think. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the current format. The next video, I already have it filmed. I just haven't edited it. That's a fun word to say. But I'm going to try to change a few things. Basically, what we're doing here, to get back to the model at hand, is it took me a good, healthy amount of time to fight with these oil hoses to get them to attach to the oil sump, and it was pretty frustrating. You can see I had to break out the tweezers, and anyway, that was another frustrating part of this build. So you just have to have some patience with that. If you already haven't learned some sort of patience with the first couple boxes of this model, I just have a feeling you're going to be in for a long road ahead, myself included. And now, people, we are in the home stretch. We've reached the final portion of today's build, the 14th part of this model so far. What we're doing here is we're inserting the water pump fitting into the housing of the water pump, and then with 2 AP screws, we are going to be putting this subassembly into the engine mount. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we did have a water pump inflow. We attached that, but it went by pretty quick. Anyway, moving on, we're going to have the water pump pulley section pressed fit together. 2 tabs go together, and then those tabs go in to the pulley outer section. So you have the inner section, the outer section, they all go together. It's all press fit, no screws. Then there's a tiny cap that goes over the end of it. As you can see, we have quite the subassembly going on here. You take all of those things, take all of those pieces, you press fit them together over the assembly. There's notches in them so that you don't get it twisted and don't get it assembled the wrong way. Same thing with this fan. The radiator fan, you have the bolts on the outside and there's notches in it, and then you put that together over the shaft using, you guessed it, a flanged BP screw. Now again, I'm getting pretty tired. I'm sure you guys are getting pretty tired of this video, but hold on, we're almost there. Adding this radiator fan at this stage of the game was great. It looks cool, it spins, but we'll run into a problem in a minute, and I'll get to that. We're gonna take the coolant hose, we're gonna put it through the bottom of the engine mount and attach it to the water pump. Looks pretty good. We'll attach that to the engine here shortly. After that, we have a couple fittings that we're gonna put into the engine mount and the oil pump. And we'll take our whole subassembly engine mount and attach it to the front of the engine block using 2 AM screws. And my oh my, this thing's coming together. And we're almost to my favorite part. So I had one more little frustrating thing that I had to get through before getting to my favorite part, and that is adding the coolant hose that we attached to the engine mount, getting that into the engine block As you can see there, it took me a lot of time. I had to get my tweezers out. I had to get my X-Acto knife out, and I'm still fighting with it. Look at this. This is frustrating. I just wanted to be done. Okay, here we go, everybody. This is my favorite part of the build. So, boom, there goes the fan, the radiator fan. Had to take it off because I couldn't stretch the rubber bands around the fan. It was just too big, and I didn't want to break them. I was adding all of the belts, which are just little tiny rubber bands, to all of the pulleys, and this was super satisfying. It was a very fun part of the project, and honestly, it might have been my favorite part. I think it is my favorite part, going back and looking at the footage. But of course, at the end, I did have to add the fan back on with that screw, with the flange on it. Yeah, whew. Okay, who's glad that we got through all that? All right, enough complaining. So again, I want to thank you guys tremendously. I put a lot of time and effort into not only building these models, but also videoing them and editing the audio and recording the audio and doing all of the behind the scenes stuff that you guys you get to see this nice finished, polished, somewhat video. And as we just look at this model, I just wanted to again say thank you very much for joining me on this journey. It's been very fun. It's been frustrating at times too, but it's a really cool model, and I'm glad that you guys are sticking around to watch the completion of it. Again, it's a 2-year model, and we're into box 5, I think, at this point. So we're making steady progress, but overall it's going pretty well. I can't complain. Wait, I lied. I can complain. So this is the free mug that I got with this box, and I just want to point out that we're building a 1997 model, and it has 2009 Jeff Gordon flames on it. I appreciate the free gift, but like, what are we doing? All right, I'm not gonna complain about it. I'm just that kind of nerd, so whatever. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye, everyone.